Dadgummit. It keeps changing my orientation. Oh, well, greetings and blessings to you, my friends. I'm your humble servant and prognosticator and whomever David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from our creator. And so with that said, I'm going to not make this, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But, you know, America, prove who you are. Show your ID. Your ID is important. Now, over the last few years, we've seen some videos of people who get pulled over by the policeman, and they, you know, roll down your window and show me your ID, and you see them sitting in their car, and they, well, I don't have to prove who I am, and here's my ID through the window, and all this kind of nonsense. And I have always figured that these folks have got to be just nutso. Now, I'm an old hippie from way back, and I believe in all kinds of freedoms and rights and stuff. But we learned a long time ago when you pull up, when you're pulled over by whoever it is, if they got a flashing light, you should pull over. And and the first thing you should do is show your ID, prove who you are. And somehow in this day and age, that's not required. Now, I submit very simply, in this day and age, you should be willing. And here's my ID, officer. Here, I want to prove who I am. I am an American. I am an American citizen, and I belong here. Now, you know, in this day and age, when there are 15 million extra people who were brought into this United States walking across our southern border, how do we find those people who don't belong here? Show your ID. It should be a new theme. How do we get rid of the illegals in here? Show your ID. If you have an honest to God valid ID, show your ID and be proud of it. Don't be one of these weirdos, and I just call them a dumbass, because if you're not willing to show your ID, you got something to hide. Well, it's my constitutional right. I don't have to prove. Why'd you pull me over? And blah, blah, blah. These people are just dumbasses, regardless of why they pulled you over. Well, you don't have a right. I wasn't speeding. Doesn't matter. Well, as soon as you deny showing them your ID, in their eyes, you're the Klinko. You're the dummy. Am I sideways? Did you know you were sideways? Am I sideways now? Oh, it says on my screen that I got to change my orientation. This is not that, so that's better. Okay, everything is weird on the screen. But so, from a person who was just sideways in the world on this crazy, that's how crazy things are. Orientation is blocked. Rotate device back. Interesting. So I had rotated it, and that made me sideways. I'm only sleeping. How you doing, Miss Chloe? So, but anyway, this thing I'm keeping up with some of the news and watching, like I watch the headlines and go through into some stuff and listen and it's like, so a lot of folks are like, so how do we fix this? A lot of folks, how do we fix this? Well, what do you mean, how do we fix it? So when watching this one show program that I stopped watching to do this video, I'm like, good that that we've got all these people. How are we going to get them out of here? Trump has declared, massive deportation and I'm in agreement. There's two. If you ain't from here and you can't prove it, then but Kamala Harris, she wants to defund ICE and these other people, and it's like, no, 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 no. So America, how do we stand up to these crazy leftist, righteous, whoever folks that these folks are, simply by agreeing to show your ID? I'm proud to be an American. Here's my ID, officer. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you're not one of them lunatics who roll up their windows and refuses, to show it. No, here, officer, here is my identification. I'm already, if you have pulled me over, then you already know what my tag says. You already have information on the vehicle and possibly at least one of the occupants. And so not showing your ID is you're just proving that you're a dumbass. So, but in this day and age, people should be absolutely jumping up and down and willing to show their ID to prove that they're American, to prove who they are, to prove that they belong here. And you see, this is my badge of honor. This is my identification. I'm from here. Do you have identification? Can you prove that you're from here? My friends and fellow Americans, it's really simple. All these demos that are trying to say, oh, well, they don't need ID, they don't have to prove who they are, then you're part of the problem. Then you should be questioned, with a low light and, bread and water for a couple of days to figure out why would you think that way to begin with. Well, what do you mean, Dave? Well, listen, my friends, I don't have to prove who I am. Come on, we're going to lock you up. What? You can't prove who you are. Well, what do you mean? Well, I live in America. This is the land of the free, the home of the brave. Yeah, you're free. Show me your ID. But I don't have to show it to you. I live in a free society, a free country. Then show your ID and prove who you are. But I don't have to. My amendment, my constitution, my public, show your ID, dumbass. Don't be stupid. Whoever started this idea that you don't have to prove who you are is stupid. The people who feel like they don't have to show their ID or prove who they are is a dumbass. You should be willing and you should be honored to show and prove who you are. Are you an American? Then prove who you are. That's all. Really hard. I got a driver's license. Here you go, officer, or whomever. This is who I am. Bink. When I go to vote, I give my driver's license. Bink. They scan it. Bink. Come on in, Mr. No. Here, go vote. Here's your thing, and go right through there. Bink. Proves who I am. that documentation that I was there with an ID and that I can prove who I am by my identification. So back in the day, be glad that back in the day when the Jews were in Germany, they had to wear little stars on their clothing to prove who they were. And actually, it was to prove who they weren't. If you didn't have the Star of David on your shirt or whatever, then that meant you were one of them. But if they had determined that you were a Jew, then you had to wear the badge. So it was a badge of honor for the Jews in a way, but it was a badge of dishonor to them. Proving who you are with a driver's license is not a badge of dishonor. But they're going to prove it's my God-given right. But these are different times. In the colonial days, if you met someone on the road, you still exchanged pleasantries. Well, who are you? Well, my name is Robert E. Lee, and I come from the state of Georgia. Robert E. Lee. Well, there's a Robert E. that from the state of Virginia. Well, that's a cousin, but no, I'm from Georgia. Well, that's interesting. You're from the Lee family, yes. From Georgia, yes. It establishes who you are, where you are. I was watching Navajo Traditional Understanding, and the elder was talking about that when you meet someone in the Navajo Nation, you give who your grandmother and grandfather were on the mother's side, and then who the grandmother and grandfather are from the father's side. And that establishes what clans you're from. And it establishes who you are. It establishes your identification, which means your ID in the Navajo Nation. So you don't say, yeah, I don't need. No, you are proud to give your heritage. You are proud to give your identification as to who you are. And then he said at the end, he said, when it comes time for me to cross over, when it's time for me to go through the doorway to the spirit world, where my ancestors are waiting, I must give the correct, knock, knock, hello. And they say, who is it? And he said, you have to give who you are by your family's clan. I am the son of such and such on mother's side. I am such and such my father's side. May I come in? And he said, because I was married and my wife has gone before me, he said, then I also give my wife's original name, her personal name, and ask if I am allowed to come into heaven with the ancestors. So it's like identification. Who are you? Why are people so unwilling to prove who they are these days with the police? In my opinion, they got something to hide. If I was a policeman and I went up to somebody and it was like, well, I don't want to show you my ID. This is what I would do. I would very calmly say, you don't want to show your ID? No. All right, just stay right there. I'm going to call a supervisor. But in the meantime, you go back to the car and you get one of them locking devices for the wheels and you put one on the back tire. And they'll be looking out the little side window going, what's he doing back there? And they'd be putting one of them little lock things on your wheel. And then he comes back up and he goes, okay, he said, do would you like to give me your driver's license, please, and your information? Well, no, sir. I'm waiting on him to say, okay, fine. Say, well, you stay right here. Your rear wheel is locked. And if you call this number, someone will come back and unlock it, but you must prove who you are and give us your ID and information. Meanwhile, my supervisor is attending to other things. So, it's like, okay, I'll see you later. I'm going to continue on my patrol. And they're going, well, wait a minute. What? They try to drive off or whatever, and their rear wheel is locked. They can't go nowhere. So you might say, well, Dave, that's a little harsh. No, if you're driving on a public roadway and you refuse to give any identification, then in order to keep the rest of us people safe, you, I'm sorry, are a hazard to the rest of us in public, and you do not need to be driving. If you can't produce your ID, then you must be drunk or really, really, really high or really, really something, or you're transporting something, but you ain't going nowhere until you can prove otherwise. I'm sorry. Does that mean we live in a Chinese state? I don't think so. Because whoever has dissolved some of these people's minds into believing that somehow it's un-American to show your ID, it's just, they're a dumbass. I'm sorry. They're a dumbass. America, show your ID. Hey, F Kitty. Hey, Barry. Is it a... Yes, it absolutely is. And I'm ready. So it absolutely is very important. And, I don't ever ask to share videos, but if you're willing, share this one. But tell your friends and neighbors, prove who you are. How do we get rid of 15 million people? By proving who the rest of us are. That's how. Is that Mossy Man? X, what's up? So, there are a lot of folks, what are we going to do? And how can we fix this? And how can we, well, this is my number one. We can start right here, in promoting our ID. And if there's any, I don't care what color these folks are, and it takes all colors, mind you. I don't mean just black people, white people, or Mexican people, or whatever. But by the way, I have not seen any Orientals. Like, no show ID. Oh, no. No. But to the idea that we are helpless, not if we start working on a local level. If we start telling people on a local level within our community, hey, they stop people for breathalyzers and proof of ID all the time, right? And so people say, well, I don't like that or whatever. And listen, the local Mexicans, they've got a speed dial. If they know that the local ICE is doing a roadblock, them folks know all the back roads and how to avoid it, and they skedaddle. I worked for a Mexican restaurant in Thomasville, and if their cell phones rang, them folks was gone. Them folks working in the kitchen or whatever, they was out of that restaurant and on the highway going to whatever destination that was their hideout. They were off the road and out of there. So that the fact that this don't exist, oh, come on. That was 15 years ago, and of course it's happening now. So, but this idea somehow that how do we stop this? We stop it on a local level. Period. Here's my ID. I'm a good American. Here's my ID. Oh, that's going to piss some people off, you know. I'm a good American. Here's my ID. What? And you might say, well, Hawkeye, what good's it do? Well, let me tell you something. If you live in a county, any county, pick one, and you drive around even modestly, and I sat up the top of my head off, which doesn't really matter. Maybe I could lose a few pounds that way. Um, but if you frequent in the county, right, and there's a county cars, you know, the county mounties, the police, whatever you want to say. And if you live in town and you live in a neighborhood, then the police who police that neighborhood know what your car looks like. They probably know who you look like, especially if you've been out on the porch or whatever. So this idea that depending on where you live, they don't know who you are is just kind of is stupid these days. Now, back in the day, there was a couple of cops, county mounties, who knew who I was. And even when somebody tried to get me busted, the county deputies kept me from going to jail because they were like, we know who you are. We know where you live. And somebody's trying to get you put in jail, Mr. No. That was exactly what he said in this house. And I was like, what? They could have arrested me for an ounce of weed and they didn't. Because on the warrant it said a pound of weed and I didn't have no pound of weed. So they was like, we're going to take this. Now you be a good boy. We know who you are. And they've known this for years, right? Because they came over with a helicopter. But to this other section of that, to prove who you are, if you are in good standing with the local sheriff's department, if they have pulled you over before and you cooperated, then that's a positive check in your corner. So, but if you are belligerent to the police in any way, and don't, let me tell you, when they get back to the locker room, they're going to go, you know, I had this guy pulled over today, this Smith guy from out there towards Meg's. He tried to pull some wonky shit on me, and they were like, yeah, is that the same Smith that lives over near him? Yeah, his address said something on a blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, we know who that. Yeah, he's given us problems before. You're already on their radar. But now, if you're the type of person who decides on your own to cooperate with said wherever you live police departments or local county mounties or whatever, if you see one sitting on the side of the road, pull over and go, hi, I want to introduce myself. I live in this neighborhood and I want to show you my ID. I want you to know I'm on your side. Now think about that. How many people are walking around going, well, I don't want them to know who I am. I'm an old hippie dude, right? I'm all for free love, blah, 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 you know, and open and all. But I'm still about who are you? Well, I'm John Smith and I live down on such and such. Well, I don't think there was none of us, unless we were too damned high to reply, tried to lie to the man. Now, there were sometimes if you was holding a bag of weed or something, and, you know, it's like, well, you know, my name's John Smith, but, you know, but that was because you was doing something illegal. If you wasn't doing nothing illegal, there wasn't nothing illegal with telling the man who you was. Because if you told the man who you was and they cleared you, viewers cleared, then they didn't have any reason to, to mess with you. So it was to your benefit in my old hippie days to tell them who the fudge you was. Here's my ID, sir. You got anything to? No, sir. Look around here, search. And now they would sometimes search beyond recognition. We, suspect you. Now, here's the thing. Why would they suspect you? Well, I drove around in a 59 Rambler with a bird painted on the front of my hood and wondered why they kept picking me out of the crowd. So then I learned how to camouflage and how to be there but not be seen, to not be obvious, to be obviously there but not, not on anybody's radar, and that's by waving to the cops. That's by giving them thumbs up. That's like, the hi officer, do you need something? By playing the opposite side. And there were times when, yes, I was doing something illegal, but, not always. But I always would rather be on the favorite side of the police than to have them wanting to be pissed off at me, period. So for folks these days, well, we don't need no more police. Well, maybe not, but we only have so many sheriffs for a certain amount of area here in the county. And if I remember, you've heard me tell the story about when we found the gentleman who was in a burning vehicle. We pulled him out. His leg was missing. We called the police. It took them 10 minutes to get there. So it's like to have a couple extra sheriff's deputies available for emergencies, if nothing else, not necessarily to patrol. But my friend, I did a video a couple of weeks ago where one of my buddies, they rode right up in his yard while he was asleep and stole stuff out of his yard and out of the shop. They did find out some stuff later on that some other people had got stole too, and they kind of narrowed it down to some folks. But anyway, the police knew about it. The neighbors knew each other. So it's the communication. It's proven who you are. It's proven. It's like, hey, I'm one of your neighbors and I saw something suspicious. Well, I'm the neighbor. They took some stuff from me. Well, my neighbor down the road, he got some stuff took too. Really? So that's proving who you are. What? Well, if you prove to the police who you are, you're proving that you're part of the neighborhood. You're proving that you're part of the community. And if you don't want to, I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. It's my God-given right. I don't have to prove. Okay, we are not in the Stone Ages anymore. But even in the Stone Ages, they proved who they was. I'm Brutus from the Ugbug tribe, Really, I'm too far from the Ugbug tribe. You still told who you were. You still identified yourself. And if you didn't, they would start pulling swords out and wanting to stab one another. Why is it so wrong to prove who you are or to want to show your ID? Who got that craziness started? My dear friends, in this time, and we still have our freedoms. I've been pulled over a bunch of times in my lifetime. And I have proven who I was every time. And it was only, the weird times that I got arrested, but I got arrested here at my house. So, I bet they knew who I was when they pulled in my driveway. But of the times that I have been pulled over, I've only gotten a couple of tickets. And speeding and, but tail light out and, simple things. But that They never carried me off to jail. When I proved who I was now, back when I had a, a Willie Post down in Florida. If you had an inspection sticker that was not expired or whatever or missing, you went to jail. And I went to jail on the night before Thanksgiving, way back in about 1971-ish, before I moved up here to Georgia. And Dade City Jail, Dade, Pasco County. But anyway, yeah, I went to jail that day, even though I had proof and everything. Oh, Willie, he was like, sorry, son, you're coming with me. And, couldn't give up anyway. But that was way back in the day. And since that time, I've learned, give your ID, cooperate with the policeman or whoever it is. Don't be a horse's patootie. Show some respect. Well, I don't have to. It's my constitutional right. Oh, shut up. These people that, if you see somebody that's got one of them videos where they're doing the ID thing out the window, give them a thumbs down. Do not agree with these assholes. I'm sorry, they're dumbasses. I don't know if they're assholes, but they are surely a dumbass for not just, it's so easy just to comply. Here you go. Here's your ID. Oh, listen, I went to a venue. I went to a concert, and I bought my tickets. Well, but you're trying to get in, and they go, well, I bought my tickets. Yeah, but I'm trying to get into the stadium. But I bought my tickets, officer. But where are they? Well, but I bought them. I bought them online. I swear to God, I bought my tickets. Well, you ain't getting in. But you have to have proof of ID. You have to have a ticket to prove that you bought one to get into the venue. So, but nobody has a problem with that. You can say, well, I told the guy that I bought a ticket. I don't have to show my ticket, do I? Do I really have to show him a ticket? Well, duh. So if you're driving around on a public street and somebody stops you and you wonder why somehow you don't have to show them your ticket as to who you are. You don't have to prove that you have the right to be on the road. And that's why if I were a policeman and somebody gave me some kind of BS, I would automatically put one of them wheel things on the vehicle so they couldn't go anywhere. And I'd drive off. I'd go see you guys, let me know when you want to cooperate, and they'd be sitting there going, no, what the fuck, they'd be recording shit and, oh, that was so wrong. No, it ain't. If there's some ass driving around out there on the highway that refuses to give their information, I don't want you on the highway with me. I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you know how to drive. You might be in that vehicle, but that don't mean that you know how to drive. Well, what do you mean? That doesn't mean that you got insurance in the state of Georgia. Because if you got a driver's license and a vehicle and you're driving, you're supposed to have insurance. So I don't want to be on the highway because you might run into my ass. And then who's going to be liable for the damages and my insurance and what, so but why would I not want the police to pull your ass over and ask whether or not you have permission to drive in the state of Georgia and that you have insurance as required and that you have a valid driver's license? And of course, they're going to look at your tag to see if it's up to date. If not, then you're breaking the law. You are an illegal immigrant, so to speak. So why would you not want to cooperate? Why are these folks so hell-bent for election? Hey, Miss Sheila, how are you? Well, you're up early or late or something. But so what these it still amazes me some of these videos I've seen of, and I mean whites, blacks, it's a it's both, you know. Um, can't sleep. Me neither. Of course, I had a rough day. To interject a little personal at the moment, I had really bad heart palpitate thingies today, and my blood pressure was 159 over 109 several times. I've had my meds, I've done my stuff, and it seemed to have calmed down here a little bit ago, but I was feeling really raunchy. Oh, and while I'm on the subject for a moment, I got my test results back from the heart doctor, called me up. Well, Ricky was here the other day when I came in, and I have 4 leaky valves, 3 of them slightly and 1 of them moderately. And it's sort of like the weather stripping around a door's gone bad, as it was explained to me. So, um, but it does absolutely prove that, you know, I'm almost 72 here in another month, 2 months, um, officially, and that parts wear out. Part parts wear out, you know, and I'll tell you, since getting the news, every time I go to light up a cigarette, I think about it again, you know, and it won't necessarily repair the valves, but if they're only slightly and one is moderate, then that's not too bad. It's not too bad. And as old as I am, that's not too bad. I'll take it, right? But to go, well, you know, that's not too bad. Let me get out a big old cigar and huff on this some bitch, you know. You know, nah, I don't want to go there either. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I will share a 20 with you. But so America, you know, I think whoever's again, I do think it was some lefty loonies who started this business. You don't have to show your driver's license. You don't have to prove who you are. You don't have to, and I have just, it's like, here, officer, guess who I am? Well, you know, first I'm going to lock down your car so you can't go nowhere with one of them wheel locks. And then after you quit being a butthole, then you can show me your ID and everything, and we can both be on our way. You know, that's not really hard to do, you know. And, but, you know, oh, we live in a Hitlerian type society. Well, and you're living in a fantasy world if you can't understand how how un American it is to not want to prove who you are. I'm proud to be an American. Here is my ID. You know, you can prove, watch from my picture that I am who I be, you know, and it's like, okay, so sing this little tune with me, everybody. I'm proud to be an American who shows his, you know, ID. You know, come on now. This is dumb. But as I have repeated 30 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago, with a weird start, that, you know, how do we prove the 15 million folks that came in the last 4 years? Now, that ain't counting who's come in beforehand and from other, you know, from the northern border or from someplace else or smuggled in, you know, in one of our seaports, in a container ship or something, you know. So, and that happens, and it has happened, and it will continue to happen. And do those folks have IDs? No. But now in some states, if you can be an illegal trying to get your green card, If you have decided to give them your thumbprint, and if you have decided, these are the quote illegals, to give them information and to sign up legally, then they can give you and will give you in some places a temporary driver's license. Well, at least these folks are trying. These folks are trying to comply. So I give them, they might still be illegal, but they're trying. They have gone through the process. They went down to their local whatevers, but these folks who just, don't want to comply at all, how do we find out who they are? Because we as we as Americans should be proud to prove who we are. I do not see an issue with that. And people who want to argue that simple issue, I'm sorry, they're a dumbass. Don't care what side of the aisle you're on. If you don't believe that, well, that's my Constitution. I just want to say that's one thing we need to update is just show who you are. Show who you are. Back in the days of Daniel Boone and folks like that, there were folks out west. The sheriff would say, "Well, who are you, stranger?" And they'd go, "Well, Mama, it's none of your business. I'm here in town." And then the sheriff would normally say, "Well, then, Mister, I expect you'll be leaving, round about sundown, or you won't be here in the morning. Now you want to prove who you are and cooperate with the local sheriff, and it's like, well, howdy, Sheriff. My name is Bat Masterson, and I'm here to see your lovely town. And so what do? You go up and introduce yourself. And some of the towns you had to give up your gun. And so, but what you did, if you were paying attention, is you went along with whatever the local government was. If you was that rowdy cowboy that was like, it's none of your business. But a lot of times, even in the Old West, do you have some kind of proof to say who you are? Well, now, I own this plot of land out on the south side of town. Anybody here in the saloon will buy. Yeah, I know old Jake. He lives down there. Yeah, him and, he had, what happened to your wife? She run off on you? Yeah, ran off over the Cherokee, But to the point, though, that folks knew who each other was, could prove who they were back in the old days by proving who they were. My name is Jake, and I live down the road. Well, ain't nobody seen him down there. But then old Jake, he's going to make sure that people know that he lives down the road. He's going to prove that he lives in that house down there. Why? Because he wants to get along with his neighbors. In case something happens, back in the old days in the Old West, folks would share that information with each other. Nowadays, we don't want anybody to know. Well, I don't know such and such. It's none of your damn business. Well, you can share shit on the internet, but you can't, you can't show your ID. And then folks who say you don't have to have an ID to vote, that is, I'm sorry. If you want to allow that in this day and time, I'm sorry, I got to call you a dumbass. You want anybody to be able to vote? Well, what's wrong with asking for an ID? Well, like I said about an hour ago, back in the day, there were people who lived in the country rurally, who back in the 50s and 60s, because a lot of folks, didn't have the right to vote until the Civil Rights Act and everything. Think about that. So, but they were pulling folks out of the woodwork, literally out of the hills of the Appalachians, and folks in Mississippi and Alabama. They were pulling folks out of the rural South and getting them to the polls. And there were many of them folks that didn't even have a birth certificate. those folks had issues with getting a voter ID. But if they went into town and registered, then they could have a voter ID, which gave them sort of an ID to, well, sir, do you have a driver's license? Well, no, sir, I don't, but I got me a voter card. You do? Yes, sir. I got me a voter card. Well, I can't drive. I'm too old and ancient, but I got me a voter card and a social security number, proves who you are. Proud to be an American. So proud to show your ID. Share with your friends and neighbors, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. Are you proud to be an American? Yes. Then show your ID. One of them pink-haired I'm sorry, I don't see the thing in pink hair, but okay. One of them pink-haired badoogies that, well, I don't have to prove who I am. I'm a they. A they what? I'm a they. Oh, God, to watch these folks, but I'm so upset because she didn't give me the credit of my pronoun. How do you address somebody as they? I'm just saying, address me as they. And I'm going to go, no. Nope, sorry. You're either a he or a she, but anything in between, I'm not calling you that. Sorry. You can complain to my manager all you want to, but you're a he or a she or a lesbian or whatever, but I'm not calling you they. They what? I'm a they. Are you? That's just stupid. It's stupid. And people who think that they want to be, I want you to call me they. That's the proper way to address me as a they. I'm a they. They what? You're a what? I'm going to call you a what? I ain't going to call you they because it don't make no sense. I can't even put it in a sentence. And yet you want me to call you what? So I'm sorry. You can get mad at me all you want. You can leave. I'll pay your tab, but I'm not calling you they. If you're a they, then that means you are a commie, bastard, bitch, whiny, tiny ass little some, and get out of my establishment. We don't serve your kind. But wait a minute, get your panties in an uproar. I do not care. If you're gonna be a whiny ass, you cannot be in my, I grew up in the deep South back in the 60s. I was going through Alabama, Georgia, and northern Florida traveling with the carnival. And there was some unrest. But the folks in the communities, and I'm thinking of a certain Butler, Alabama, the blacks knew to stay away from the whitey. At certain times of day or night or whatever, you didn't go into town or weren't seen in certain sections, but that's why they had little honky-tonks out in the country. Because blacks didn't want to be seen in town because they were afraid of the whiteys. They were afraid of the KKK back then. There are some folks who were, it was Kamala Harris, actually, who they were comparing ICE, which is a legal entity, right, to pick up, illegal immigrants and folks ain't supposed to be here, and deal with them. They were saying that ICE was like the KKK. No. I was here in the South during some of the showing up cross burning and people being drug out and lynched, and sometimes in town. And no, ICE, who's to get rid of illegals now. We're not talking about blacks or anybody. No, we're talking about illegals in our country because they don't have proper ID, right? Whereas if you were black or if you were a lubber, a lubber, okay, the N-word lubber, okay. If they can say it, how come I can't? But so there were some whites that were hung for being, hanging around them black folk too much. But there were some high-profile white men who had their little honey dippers. Come here, honey, let me dip it. And so, but the for the ICE, for Kamala Harris and her cronies to reference ICE as KKK, they should do some research. ICE is no, KKK was, they wore masks and hoods and they were lynching folks. I've not heard of the ICE folks lynching any of the immigrants, illegal immigrants. You know what I mean? I think we might have heard about it. Oh, they mistreated them. Oh, they put them in a cage. Well, what's a jail? A cage. Well, but what then? So what do you consider a non-cage? Freedom! Oh, so that's why you want to turn them all loose, because you don't want them to be in cages. Okay. So that's why Kamala Harris let out all them bad people on her watch. Oh, yeah, that's right. I had to spend a year in jail for, a tiny little bit of drugs, sentenced to 20 years in prison for a tiny, I mean, literally in a bag, it was a tiny amount. Or the fact that they, arrested me for, 6 marijuana plants in a gallon bucket with a helicopter, that kind of criminal activity, spend all that money on a little bit of, on a little over an ounce of weed. Shameful to the GBI. But with that said, now that's just my personal, but to see how the police have, picked on local residents over the years, and the state has picked on folks over the years, me, but through the justice system, which was a little finagled, but a little bit of finding the right lawyer, and, you pay the fine and you get out of the way. You cooperate with the system, but you always show your ID. You always have to prove who you are. No matter where you go, you're in jail, you got to prove I'm prisoner such and such. When you go over here, you're going to go to the library and you want to check out you want to check out a book. People still do that. But if you want to check out a book, you got to have a library card. If you want to go through if you want to get into the YMCA, you got to show that you belong. And so why is showing your ID or proving you have an ID in order to vote is such a bad thing? I don't get it. I really don't get it. So from here until voting, I'm going to be on this kick. Prove you're an American and show your ID. Go ahead. Very simple. Prove you're an American and show your ID. And anybody else is going to be like ducking for cover. And those are the ones we can sick ice on and go, those people might be illegal aliens. And I'm sorry, but I do want to turn them in. Why? Because they're not trying to become a part of our society. They might be wanting to do us bodily harm. They may actually be in our country to hurt us. And if you can't prove who you are, that still don't mean say you're going to try to hurt us. But if you can't prove who you are and that you're trying to be an American, then you need to say adios. Well, I'm in here, and how long you been here? Well, I've been, So where's your passport? Well, I don't have one. I don't have to prove it. Do you have any ID? Well, no. Then bye. Adios, senor, or Mexican, or Venezuelan, or whoever you are. A lot of Chinese are coming across the border. Why would boatloads of Chinese be moving in to the United States? Think about that. I mean, bunches of Chinese, and they're coming with cell phones, and they're coming with stuff. And they've already proven that there are some of these groups who are going into these cities and who they're now, shame on the people who invested. Is that $2,000 or $20,000? I didn't see a period or comma. Looked like 20. But to the point, 2,000. Okay. But still a bunch, But so these folks, I'm sorry if you can't prove who you are. But make an effort. Make an effort. If you're not from here and you really want to stay, and you're not some kind of covert ops or something, and probably, here's the thing, the covert ops folks are trying to blend in. They're going to want to get an ID. They're going to want to be able to pass off. They're probably going to be the ones with the fake IDs, but they're going to have some kind of ID in case they get caught, so they can go, oh, well, they got something to show for it. So, the folks, covert ops, they want to blend in. They've got IDs. They've got fake stuff. They might not have it when they get across the border, but they can pick up on it if they know other friends, and they've got prearranged agreements with cell phones and stuff. And these folks are showing up in cities, and they're like, oh, come on in. We've been waiting on you, and it's like, yeah, how was the trip? Well, we had to get through the Darien Gap, but other than that, not too bad. And so, or that they were helicoptered into Tijuana, or Nogales. But so anyway, tell your friends, tell your neighbors to tell the dumbasses who think that it's a bad idea to not want to show their ID. To stop being silly, stop being stupid. Whoever connived you into thinking that way, please rethink it. Please understand. It is all about being American, to prove who you are and to prove that you are a true American. Show your IDs. So with that said, it's an hour. I'm going to leave you with that for tonight, this morning. I do continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. How do we win an election? We prove to the people who might be trying to sneak in, you can't sneak in. Prove who you are. The state of Georgia, you have to have proof. And I love it. And for those folks who might want to bitch and argue about it, thank you for the state of Georgia to require an ID to vote. F. Kitty and Chloe and Barry, I love you all. Please be safe. trying to keep things in about an hour. So this is a public service announcement. But I will continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the Creator. So till next time, probably tomorrow night after the show with Robert V. So I love you. Be safe and keep it between the ditches. Love you. Bye.